on Larry King Now, wrestling legend Chris Jericho.
I couldn't be the biggest guy on the show, but I could be the biggest personality and the biggest character. And that's what I focused on. I never considered myself a wrestler. I considered myself an entertainer.
Who is currently on the list?
Well, I mean, anybody that makes me mad. But it's also a good thing too. Everyone wants to be on the list now. That's the thing when you start as a bad guy. Like I was calling people stupid idiots and people were booing. Now, call me a stupid idiot. Can you put me on the list? It's not, you're supposed to be mad at that.
Like my friend Don Rickles. Insult me.
Yeah, exactly right. We live in a world now, I call it the era of the celebrity president. Now with Trump, no previous experience, knows how to work a camera, knows how to be charismatic. That's what you need to be the president now. We've already established you don't have to be a governor, you don't even have to be a senator.
Plus, Chris Jericho in 10 years.
Still here talking to you, Larry, and Larry King Now. I'll still be entertaining people. I'll still be doing what I'm doing because that's all I know how to do. You won't ever see me working at a bank. Or
It's all next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. My guest is Chris Jericho, wrestler, musician, podcaster, and New York Times best-selling author. Chris is known as one of the most popular and charismatic professional wrestlers in history, having won a multitude of world heavyweight titles throughout his career in the WWE, ECW, WWF, and WCW. Outside the ring, the Ayatollah of rock and roller is the lead singer of the rock band Fozzy, and he hosts a hit podcast called Talk is Jericho on podcast1.com. His new book is No is a four-letter word, How I Failed Spelling but Succeeded in Life. You failed spelling?
well, no is a four-letter word, right?
All right, how'd you come up with that title? What does it mean?
Well, I mean, I find that no really is an ugly word because people throw it out very easily and they accept it very easily.
It's also hard to say sometimes.
Well, it's hard to say, and it's hard. But for me, it was always hard to accept it because when I was a kid, I wanted to be in a rock and roll band and I wanted to be a wrestler, and all everybody said was, "No, you'll never do that." And I always never accepted that. I always want to deconstruct the no and find out how can I make it a yes. So I've done 3 autobiographies in the last 8 years. And I like to write. I got a lot of great stories, but do we really need a 4th Chris Jericho autobiography in like 10 years? Yeah, exactly. It's not Jack Kerouac or Hemingway or somebody. So people would always ask me, how'd you make it in rock and roll? How'd you make it in wrestling? So what I did was I went through my life and I picked 20 principles, 20 lessons that I learned from famous people, fictional characters, friends, and put them all into this book about how I learned all these lessons that enabled me to achieve these goals and make these dreams come true.
So this is a book to help the reader.
Yeah, it really is. It's still filled with ridiculous stories. I mean, it's still me, right? But, the Vince McMahon principle, work hard and then work harder. The Yoda principle, there is no try, there's only do. The Gene Simmons principle, always look like a star, always dressed for success. All those little tips can help you get what you want in life. And I realized this by putting it in this book. It really is. I'm the new Tony Robbins.
And you had Paul Stanley of Kiss write the foreword, huh?
Absolutely. And the thing about Paul was he gave me this quote. When I was 16 years old, I saw him on a documentary, and he said, the only people that tell you can't do something are the ones that have failed. And I always, that was speaking to me. Like, you can't tell me I'm not going to do it because I believe in this. So to have Paul 30 years later, after this quote sparked off this career of mine, then he writes the foreword of it. It was like a real, full circle moment.
Did you have a mentor?
I mean, I think not necessarily a mentor one. There's been a bunch of them.
Was there any one piece of advice early on?
I mean, I think just actually Vince is a pretty big mentor of mine. I've been working for him for 17 years, Vince McMahon. He's a very unique character.
I know Vince very well.
You know him very well, right? We've done shows together with you. And I love writing about Vince because he's such a unique, wacky, motivated, amazing character, and he'll never write about himself because he's too humble. He doesn't like talking about himself. So I'll write about him in my book. That's the way I like to do it,
Now, how'd you get with the WWE?
I've been working for years at that point in time because when I started wrestling, I was pretty small at the time. It was all like the Hulk Hogan.
You're still not
guys.
6'3".
I never will be. But what I could do, I couldn't be the biggest guy on the show, but I could be the biggest personality and the biggest character. And that's what I focused on. I never considered myself a wrestler. I considered myself an entertainer because that's what I brought to the table that was different from the guys that were really big. I could focus on that.
Did you ever want to box?
No, I was not. I was always in show business. Once again, I wanted to be in a rock and roll band, and I wanted to be a wrestler. To me, like, my dad played pro hockey for 10 years. I was a terrible hockey player. I'm not, boxing, I wasn't disciplined enough, but the show business element, the character, the portrayal, that sort of a thing, committing to playing this other person.
How do you try out for WWE? Had you wrestled before?
I had been wrestling for 9 years around the world. That's how it was.
Various.
It was various. I was a star in Mexico, Japan, Europe. And then finally, at that point in time, it took me 9 years before word gets around, and then you finally get in. Now they have a big training center down in Orlando. They sign guys that they think will make it. They go down there for 2-3 months, and they train, and they start learning how to get in the business.
So Vince had seen you wrestle?
I'm not sure he did. One thing about Vince is, like, I always say that it doesn't matter what you've done outside of those walls until you walk into a WWE ring and Vince sees you with his own 2 eyes. I don't think it matters what you've done. I think his people had told him about Chris Jericho, and he might have seen a few things, but I don't think he really knew who I was and what I could do or what I had potential to do until I got there. And as good as I was after 9 years, getting into the Vince world was a completely different thing.
Why is WWE, and I've been on that show,
You have.
Monday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Monday night.
Why is it so successful?
I think because it's a variety show. It's a modern day morality play. If Shakespeare was alive today, he'd be writing WWE shows. Because there's drama, there's comedy, there's emotion, betrayal, conflict, romance.
But it's staged.
Of course it's staged, but so is Shakespeare plays, and so are the best movies you've ever seen. You and I could go see the newest, I don't know, pick out any movie, the new Fast and Furious movie, and we go watch the movie like, this is a great movie. We know it's not real. We know these cars can't do flips and all these other things that happen, but within the confines of that movie, it's magic. That's what wrestling is.
Why do the fans go so crazy?
It's the same reason why you go crazy at a boxing match or go to the movies. You get into it. I find that the 3 biggest, the most focused, craziest fans are WWE fans, Kiss fans, and Star Wars fans. They're never happy. They're super loyal. They'll buy all the merch. They complain, but they love it, and they're there for life.
Have you retired?
I've been not a full-time WWE performer for about the last 7 years. But
So when do you wrestle?
I just finished up a whole stint back in May. Take some time off. Book comes out, other shows, other opportunities. Then I go back. You keep it fresh. That's another of the principles. It's the David Bowie principle. Reinvent yourself. Constantly keep things changing. If you get in a rut, change things. And that's what I do.
How I failed spelling but succeeded in life. No is a 4-letter word. Our guest is Chris Jericho. My conversation with the WWE legend continues right after this. Don't forget the book. No is a 4-letter word. How I failed spelling but succeeded in life. Stay with us on Larry King Now. Our guest, he's one of my favorite people, Chris Jericho. He's been with us before. It was great having him. Is there a lot of camaraderie in the WWE?
Yeah, there is. It's like being at war. You see your old war buddies. I've never been in the Army, but I haven't seen them in 20 years, and it's like a day haven't passed. It's the same in WWE. You spend so much time with these guys, and then when I leave for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, you don't see them, and you come back, it's like your old buds.
Are there moments when you really get angry in the ring?
Not now, not at this level. This is a professional, but there was times. I mean, especially going overseas. Mexico, you'd get in fights with guys in the ring. Japan, it used to happen all the time because they would always try and teach a lesson to the foreign guy. So you would basically just have to punch them back. It does happen from time to time where you might get a little heated with somebody, but it doesn't break down into a full-fledged fight in the ring. Sometimes there's fights backstage, once in a while. I've been in a few of them myself. But
you have a close buddy from the wrestling world?
Yeah, there's quite a few. There's guys.
Now you went into acting like John Cena.
Oh, yeah.
What do you make of, like, Cena?
Well, here's what I think. You talk about Cena, you talk about The Rock, you talk about Batista, you talk about Jericho. We all have that Vince McMahon work ethic. And another thing is, there's no prima donnas in the WWE. You've been backstage, you see how it is. You're expected to do your job, you're expected to do the press, you're expected to do whatever it takes to represent the company and represent yourself. So whenever guys like us come out into Hollywood, guy like John, work ethic through the roof, attitude amazing, press, what do you want me to do? What else can I do to promote this? It's like a dream performer for the people out here.
How do you explain the phenomenal success of The Rock?
Just work ethic, talent, charisma, not taking no for an answer. I mean, it all boils down to
Rock has all those things.
He does have all those things, yeah.
Think he'd run for president?
Absolutely.
Think he could win?
Absolutely. I'll tell you the reason why, Larry.
Why?
We live in a world now, I call it the era of the celebrity president. It started with Obama and a little bit, now with Trump. No previous experience, knows how to work a camera, knows how to be charismatic. That's what you need to be the president now. We've already established you don't have to be a governor, you don't even have to be a senator.
Yeah, but he could be a failed president.
Well, I agree, but in retrospect, but he still got in. So if you have a guy like The Rock who comes on with super charismatic, he's a big guy, he commands, you know, he has a presence about him, he could win. He could win.
There's talk a few current and former UFC fighters might step into the WWE ring.
I mean,
would they do well?
Well, it's all show business, like you said.
Wouldn't Conor McGregor do well?
He's got the personality for it. We did something with Floyd. It's funny. Here's how much we work.
I remember when Mayweather fought a wrestler.
Well, yeah, but we were on your show with me, Mayweather, and you, and Vince.
Right.
So I went back to find that last week, and then I realized that I had done an in-ring confrontation with Floyd. I was in his face. I said, "Listen, little man, I will knock you out. I'll knock your ass out." I had totally forgotten about it until I was looking up our show with you and me, and then found that picture. You know how it is, you do so much stuff sometimes you forget these things that you've done. But Floyd did good because he has the gift of the gab. Conor would do great as well because he knows how to talk. He knows how to sell tickets. That's what it's all about.
So there are lighter people like that who wrestle?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, Floyd actually wrestled the Big Show.
Yeah.
You know, because its size doesn't matter in the WWE. It's just about the story.
Think Ronda Rousey would do well?
Absolutely. Same thing. It's show business. She would do great there. I bet you she'll be in the WWE before Conor will be. I really think that.
Because Conor makes.
Well, and Conor still fights. Yeah, you're not going to get Conor for anything less in this day and age.
Did you expect him to do what he did?
I thought he did a great job. I was expecting Floyd to win completely, and I think people might have underestimated Conor a bit. Like, he's never had a boxing match. Well, big deal. He's a UFC champion. You could punch that guy in the face 10 times. He's not going to go down, as we saw. But the inexperience of the conditioning is what led to him losing. But it was the perfect finish. He looked great. Floyd wins, 50-0, retires. Had Conor gone the distance, or even won, it would have been horrible for boxing, because it would have shown a guy with no experience can come beat the best of all time, pound for pound. So it was a great finish, a great fight, and everyone got their money's worth.
How do you explain the fact that McGregor never hurt him?
Never hurt Floyd?
He never hurt him.
He's too fast,
and he was hitting him in the first 3 rounds.
I bet you it's like a callus. Like, you know, if you and I go to play guitar or lift weights, you get the callus on your fingers, the callus on your hands. I bet you he's got a whole body callus and just years of getting punched where it doesn't affect him. He was rope-a-doping him, Larry. I mean, totally was. He was tiring him out. The old Ali trick. And that's exactly, he got him exactly where he wanted him, where you can see McGregor in like round 9, just standing there. Like, just end this now, right? But that's the experience.
Up next, I'm putting the great Chris Jericho in the If You Only Knew hot seat. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back on Larry King Now. We're back with Chris Jericho, the new book. It'll be another bestseller. No is a 4-letter word. What about the band Fozzy?
Yeah.
Is that a bigger kick to you as wrestling?
I like to do them both. And that's the thing people say, if you could only choose one, I don't have to. I do them both. And right now we have a #1 song on satellite radio for 5 weeks in a row. So to see the band growing the way that the wrestling career grew.
You going to do another album?
Absolutely. Actually, our new one comes out October 13th.
What's the song now?
Judas is the song.
Judas, about the guy from...
It's about betraying yourself. We always make bad decisions, and you know it's a bad decision, but you make it anyways. You're betraying yourself. That's kind of what the lyrics revolve around.
Any bands you'd like to collaborate with?
Well, we toured with Metallica back in 2013. That was amazing. You know, obviously the biggest band on the planet, but not just how they play, but how they act, how they treat their opening bands. Very classy organization, you know.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that the bigger the star, the classier they are. It's always the guys in the middle that
that's
you know what I mean, right?
Absolutely true.
That have the problems, the ego problems and stuff. But I mean, anytime you can do something with Metallica is thumbs up for sure.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew, Chris.
All right.
I'll throw something at you.
Here we go.
Who was your childhood celebrity crush?
Ooh, actually, it was funny. The first crush I can ever remember having is, remember Mary Hartman?
Of course.
I don't remember, it was Louise, I can't remember what her name was, but Mary Hartman was my first. And then also Charo. I loved Charo when I was
She's been here.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice you ever got?
Actually, my dad told me, you got to sell yourself. No one's going to call you. You got to pick up the phone and call people and be on the case.
Got to get off the porch.
Absolutely, yeah.
Worst piece of advice you ever got?
Drink another shot of whiskey.
What's your most memorable wrestling moment?
Match-wise, probably I had a ladder match with Shawn Michaels in 2008 that was a culmination of this amazing 8-month-long story. That's probably my favorite match for all those reasons.
Story of you and him?
Just the story.
Were you always the nice guy?
No, I've been a WWE champion 6 times, all of them as a bad guy. So let me tell you, that tells you which one I like better.
So bad guys win?
They can. Well, yeah, they have to. That's how you build it up for the good guys to get revenge in the end.
Strangest fan encounter?
It's always strange to me when people have tattoos of you. Actual Chris Jericho tattoo of my face. Some of them are great. Some of them aren't. They look like maybe like a zombie version of Jericho, but you still have to be nice. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, man.
Is that your real name?
No, my real name is Irvin, Chris Irvin. Yeah.
Who gave you Jericho? That's pretty good.
Yeah, I got that.
Joshua fit the battle.
Yeah, they wanted me to be a cowboy when I first started, and I hated cowboys and stuff. So they wanted me to be like Cowboy Chris, I don't know, Casper or something like that. I'm from Casper, Wyoming, so I needed a name quickly. And there was a cassette tape of this German heavy metal band, and the album was called Walls of Jericho. And I was like, I don't want to be Cowboy Chris Casper. I'll be Chris Jericho. All right, Chris Jericho it is.
Who's a wrestler from yesteryear you'd like to have faced?
Probably the late Owen Hart. He passed away before I got to the WWE, but that would be a great one.
Who from history would you like to take to lunch?
Man, I'll go John Lennon for now.
Not
I could
bad.
change, yeah.
Person you'd like to switch places with for a day?
Along the same lines, I think it'd be interesting to be like Paul McCartney or Mick Jagger or someone that everybody in the world knows, just to see how it would be to live that for one day.
Biggest risk you ever took?
Probably jumping off the top of a 15-foot high steel cage into the ring. I talk about it in this book just because I wanted to see if I could do it. You know, I was 43 years old and we had a cage match.
You land on both feet?
I landed on the guy. So I'm doing a crossbody from the top to the guy. And I'm like, I'll give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? Death. But I didn't die. I'm still here.
What's the worst injury you ever had?
I'm actually really well known for never being hurt. The only time I've ever been hurt, I broke my arm.
I see the scar.
I got a steel plate in there. That was in '94. The only time I've ever missed time in wrestling in 27 years was a 7-week period in 1994. Other than that, never been injured.
How'd you break it?
I was trying a flippity-dippity move because I thought I could do it, and I was doing it off a diving board, and then I just decided to do it off the ropes, and it didn't work as well as the diving board.
Secret talent?
Secret talent, really good barbecuer. I can barbecue a steak like a mofo, real good. You guys need to try it.
Superpower you wish you had?
Flying, maybe? Or X-ray vision to see through the ladies' dresses.
Guilty pleasure?
Early 90s rap. MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, Gerardo. I like that stuff for some reason.
What's something still on your bucket list?
It's weird, man, because I got a chance to do so many things. I'll say star in a movie, leading man in a movie.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Something you wish we should be paying more attention to?
Oh, man, I mean, you could say the environment. I think that's something. I have a Tesla, Larry, which is like, you just plug the car in.
Oh, I know.
And what an amazing car.
Powerful.
Powerful. I think a little bit more of that, a little bit more of treating each other better, with the way people treat each other sometimes on the street, or other countries or other ethnicities. I don't like that. I think we all need to be nicer.
What do you think of Tesla with the smaller car?
I think it's great, the affordable one. I mean, I think probably the car companies are you know, having heart attacks right now because it's basically the end of an engine. There's no more engines necessary. Tesla has no engine, no oil, nothing. It basically plugs in and it drives itself. So I think that's very, very important because...
What do you think of the driverless car?
Interesting, right?
Not for me.
Yeah, I like to be in charge. I like to have my hand on the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, I like the idea of if you take your eyes off the wheel for a second, it will get your back, but I could never just get in and just go. It's a little bit too Terminator for me.
I would also not trust it.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit Terminator, Skynet taking over, you know?
Chris Jericho in 10 years.
Still here talking to you, Larry, and Larry King now. I'll still be entertaining people. I'll still be doing what I'm doing because that's all I know how to do. You won't ever see me working at a bank. Or
In our final moments, Chris will answer your questions sent in on social media. The book, No, is a four-letter word. Don't click away. My guest is the great Chris Jericho. Always love being with him. His new book is No is a Four-Letter Word, How I Failed Spelling But Succeeded in Life, the forward by Paul Stanley. We have some social media questions.
all right.
Aaron J. on the Larry King Now blog. Did you ever meet Donald Trump when he did his stints on WWE?
Yeah, I met Trump a bunch of times. He even gave me a bottle of his vodka when it came out. So, so thanks for the vodka, Mr. President.
Was he nice when you were there?
Yeah. He was a lot like Vince. Very air of confidence, slight tinge of arrogance, but very friendly.
At Dub 209, what does your future hold after wrestling?
Basically more of this. I love to write books. I love playing with the band. The podcast is going great. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities.
And acting too, right?
Acting as well, yeah, absolutely.
Lisa Berry on Facebook. Who would be your dream guest on your podcast?
Paul McCartney.
Now, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
Well.
yeah, you've been with him a lot of times.
Leslie also asks.
Hey, let me also say, too, not to interrupt you, it was actually an honor to have you on my show, Larry, when you came and did it. I mean, just to have...
Oh, I loved it.
Whenever I put the list of guests, I always put Larry King right at the top.
So I'm one of your favorites.
Absolutely.
Harana Man on Twitter wants to know who is currently on the list. I understand people you have beef with, right?
Yeah, it's the list of Jericho. It's just this throwaway thing that I did that became like this iconic thing.
Who's on the list?
Well, I mean, anybody that makes me mad. But it's also a good thing too. Everyone wants to be on the list now. That's the thing when you start as a bad guy. Like I was calling people stupid idiots and people were booing. Now, call me a stupid idiot. Can you put me on the list? It's like you're supposed to be mad at that.
Like my friend Don Rickles. Insult me.
Yeah, exactly right.
Gwen Sloss on Facebook. What do you make of the current state of politics in the United States?
It's interesting, man. I'm 46. It's the most decisive time in politics as far as line down the middle, Team A and Team B. It's a little bit scary. It bothers me once again because are we concentrating on the betterment of the country or are we concentrating just on not liking the president or liking the president? This is
divisive.
Yeah, divisive, exactly.
At This Is Kansu on Twitter, who has influenced you the most in your wrestling life?
From a learning standpoint, Vince McMahon and his right-hand man, a guy called Pat Patterson. He's in his 70s now, but I learned more from Pat about how to structure a match, about the psychology of wrestling. Wrestling is all psychology. It really is. It's not the moves. It's where you do things, how you do things, where you put them, and selling the story of the match. And I learned almost all I know from Pat Patterson.
Lewis Reed on Reed 2020 on Twitter. What goes into training to becoming a WWE wrestler?
It all depends, you know.
What is for you? What was training like? You have to train, right?
Well, yeah, obviously you have to train, and it was all about, lifting weights and all that sort of thing. But once again, like we talked about with Mayweather and McGregor, cardio is so important. And now, for me, my training consists of basically just riding my bike 20 miles a day at this path that I have near my house. I don't lift a lot of weights anymore because cardio is more important. But if you're starting, you actually have to, obviously it's a physical-looking business, it's an aesthetic business, but cardio is very important.
At Carly Yoder 5 on Twitter, who was your toughest opponent ever throughout your career?
I had some great ones. I loved working with Shawn Michaels. Like I said, The Rock was always fun. The Rock, actually, because he's so popular now in Hollywood, people forget how good of a wrestler he was. He was a great wrestler inside the ring. Always fun to work with him.
When you say great wrestler, since it's staged, what makes a great wrestler?
Well, connecting with the audience is so important. But also within the ring, the physical things you can do, the moves that you do together. You know, I always say, and you'll find this interesting, wrestling could be an Olympic sport because it's as much of a sport as synchronized swimming or gymnastics or figure skating. It's two people doing a planned routine. So if you had like Team America do a match and the judges would vote, then Team Russia does a match, then Team Canada does a match. It's the same thing. The judges would vote who they thought did the best performance together, and that's what wrestling is. You're working together.
Like a dance.
The best it's exactly right, like a dance. Same thing.
You know, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be my next thing.
All right, but if you're fighting X on Tuesday,
Right.
do you rehearse that bout?
You don't have time. We work 4 days a week, sometimes more, a lot of travel. When you get, it's like being in an improv jazz band. When you're that good, you just follow each other, follow the changes. Let's try this, let's do this. You might rehearse something that maybe you've never done before, one move or something, but as far as the whole match, that's impossible. You just don't have time. And plus, I can't rehearse. If there's not people in the crowd, I'm not doing a bunch of stuff. I save it for when the people are there. That's the adrenaline that you get.
Great seeing you again.
Hey,
man.
Larry, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Big thanks to my guest, Chris Jericho. Be sure to pick up a copy of his new book, No is a Four-Letter Word, How I Failed Spelling But Succeeded in Life. As always, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things, and I'll see you next time.